The fluorescent lights above me buzzed like angry wasps, their harsh white glare making everything in the convenience store look washed out and lifeless. My hands trembled as I restocked the bottom shelf with energy drinks, my swollen belly pressing against my thighs as I crouched. 8 months pregnant, and here I was, working the graveyard shift because rent didn't pay itself, and my dignity had long since packed its bags and left. The electronic door chime sang its artificial melody as another customer entered. I didn't look up. I'd learned months ago that making eye contact only invited questions I couldn't answer, pity I didn't want, or worse, recognition from someone who remembered me from before. Before Marcus, before the pregnancy, before my life became this endless loop of exhaustion and fear. "Excuse me." The voice cut through the store's stale air like a blade through silk, smooth, controlled, dangerous in a way I couldn't quite name. My spine stiffened involuntarily, some primal part of my brain registering threat even before I turned around. I looked up slowly, my knees protesting as I struggled to stand. The first thing I saw were shoes. Expensive Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine, completely out of place in this dingy part of downtown at 2 a.m. My gaze traveled upward, past charcoal slacks that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, past a black dress shirt that fit like it had been tailored to his exact measurements. Then I saw his face. He couldn't have been more than 30, with sharp cheekbones that cast shadows across his olive skin, and dark hair swept back from his forehead in a style that suggested both money and complete indifference to trends. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath, dark as midnight, assessing me with an intensity that made me feel simultaneously exposed and seen. Actually seen, maybe for the first time in months. Behind him, near the door, stood a man built like a concrete wall, wearing an earpiece and a blank expression that screamed security. Not a friend, not a casual companion, a guard. "The cigarettes," the man in front of me said, his accent barely there but present enough to suggest he wasn't born in this country. "Davidoff, behind the counter." Of course. My voice came out smaller than I intended, and I hated myself for it. I'd spent my entire pregnancy learning to make myself invisible, to take up less space, to apologize for existing. "I'll get those for you right away." As I moved behind the counter, I felt his gaze following me. Not leering. This wasn't the crude attention I'd grown accustomed to from late-night customers who thought a pregnant woman working alone was fair game for comments and wandering eyes. This was different. Calculated. Like he was solving an equation that happened to include me as one of the variables. My fingers fumbled with the cigarette display, and I cursed silently. The baby kicked, hard, right against my ribs, making me gasp. "Are you all right?" His voice had moved closer. He now stood directly across the counter from me, and I could smell his cologne, something expensive with notes of bergamot and cedar, a scent that belonged in penthouses and private clubs, not in a store that sold day-old hot dogs and lottery tickets. "Fine," I lied, finally retrieving the cigarette pack. "Just, the baby doesn't like late nights." "You work alone here?" He didn't reach for the cigarettes I held out. Instead, he continued studying me with those penetrating dark eyes. "At this hour?" "Someone has to." I set the pack on the counter, creating a barrier between us. "Will that be all?" "No security, no cameras that work." He glanced around the store with a professional assessment that made alarm bells ring in my head. "You realize how dangerous this is?" It wasn't a question. I can take care of myself. Even as I said it, I knew how absurd it sounded. I was 8 months pregnant, alone, working for minimum wage in the worst part of the city. I couldn't take care of anything. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite pity, but close. "When are you due?" 3 weeks. The words escaped before I could stop them. I never talked about the pregnancy with customers. Never. But something about his directness, his complete lack of judgment, loosened my tongue. "Look, do you want the cigarettes or not? Because I have inventory to finish before my shift ends." "You shouldn't be doing inventory, not in your condition." He pulled out a wallet, black leather, thick with what looked like hundreds. Who's the father? The question hit me like a physical blow. My hands instinctively moved to my belly, protective, even though the baby's father had stopped being worthy of protection the moment he'd laughed in my face and told me to take care of it or deal with it alone. That's none of your business. My voice came out sharper than intended, but I didn't apologize. Some wounds were too fresh, too raw, even for mysterious strangers with expensive cologne and watchful eyes. Marcus Chen. He said the name like he was reading it off a list, casual but precise. Hedge fund manager, engaged to Senator Richardson's daughter as of 6 months ago. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. How did he know? I'd told no one. Not the manager who hired me, not the other night shift worker who sometimes covered my breaks, nobody. Marcus had made it clear that if I caused trouble, if I tried to claim anything from him or damage his reputation, I'd regret it, and I'd believed him, because men like Marcus always kept their promises when it came to destruction. How do you... I couldn't finish the sentence. My heart hammered against my ribs, and the baby kicked again, sensing my distress. I make it my business to know things. He placed $300 bills on the counter, far more than the cigarettes cost. Especially when those things happen in my city. His city. The words hung in the air between us, loaded with implications I didn't want to examine too closely. I don't want your money. I pushed the bills back toward him with shaking fingers. Just pay for the cigarettes and go. The money isn't charity. He didn't touch the bills, didn't move at all. Consider it payment for information. I don't have any information to sell. You're carrying Marcus Chen's child. He refuses to acknowledge it, refuses to sign the birth certificate, refuses any financial support. His voice remained level, but something cold crept into those dark eyes. That's information I find interesting. Terror and confusion warred in my chest. Why? What do you want from me? Nothing. The word should have been reassuring, but the way he said it, soft, almost gentle, only frightened me more. But I want something from him. Before I could respond, the electronic chime sang again. 2 men entered, their movements too synchronized, too purposeful. They weren't here to buy milk and bread. My hand moved instinctively toward the panic button under the counter, but the man across from me caught my wrist. His grip was firm but not painful, his skin warm against mine. Don't. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. They're with me. The 2 men nodded at him, a gesture of respect that bordered on deference, then took positions near the entrance and the back aisle, guarding, watching. What is this? My voice cracked. What's happening? You're going into labor. He released my wrist and gestured to the floor beside the counter, where a small puddle had formed. I looked down in disbelief. My water had broken. During our conversation, while I'd been too terrified and confused to notice, my body had decided it was time. The first contraction hit then, stealing my breath and buckling my knees. Strong hands caught me before I fell. He'd moved around the counter faster than seemed possible, and now he held me upright, his face close enough that I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. The hospital is 12 minutes away, he said, already moving, supporting my weight like I was made of glass. My car is outside. You're coming with me. I don't even know your name. It was a stupid thing to say, given the circumstances, but my brain couldn't process what was happening. Strange men, broken water, 3 weeks early. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Dante. He guided me toward the door, where the guard had already pulled up a black SUV with tinted windows. Dante Moretti. And you're Elena Santos, 26, former graduate student at Sterling University, dropped out 8 months ago when Marcus Chen decided his political ambitions were more important than taking responsibility for his actions. Another contraction seized me, and I would have fallen if Dante hadn't been holding me. Through the pain, through the fear, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. This man knew everything about me. Everything. And I knew nothing about him except that he moved through the world with guards and expensive cars, that people deferred to him, that he'd called this his city. Wait. I tried to resist, tried to think, but my body had other priorities now. The pain was building, intensifying, and I couldn't do this alone, not again. I'd been alone for 8 months, preparing to give birth alone, to raise this baby alone, and I was so tired of being alone. I've got you. Dante's voice was steady, certain, as he helped me into the SUV. The leather seats were soft, the interior immaculate. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. You're not alone anymore, Elena. I promise you that. The door closed with a heavy, final sound. Through the tinted window, I watched the convenience store recede. That fluorescent prison where I'd spent months hiding from my own life. The guard drove with smooth efficiency, and Dante sat beside me, his hand covering mine as another contraction built and crested. "Why are you doing this?" I gasped between breaths. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, a gesture so unexpectedly gentle that tears pricked my eyes. Marcus Chen stole something from me once. Something irreplaceable. His jaw tightened. He took without permission, destroyed without conscience, and faced no consequences. I've been waiting for the right moment to teach him about consequences. The implications of his words settled over me like ice water. You can't use my baby as revenge. No. He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his gaze stole what little breath I had left. But I can make sure he understands what he threw away, what he rejected. I can make sure you and your child never want for anything, never fear anything, never have to work graveyard shifts in dangerous neighborhoods just to survive. Why? The question came out as barely a whisper. Because men like Marcus Chen need to learn that actions have consequences. Because you deserve better than what he gave you, and because... He paused, something complicated passing across his features. Because I understand what it means to be abandoned by the people who should protect you. Another contraction hit, harder than before, and I squeezed his hand without thinking. He didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice low and steady in my ear. "Breathe, Elena. Just breathe. I've got you." The hospital loomed ahead, all bright lights and antiseptic promises. As the SUV pulled up to the emergency entrance, as nurses rushed toward us with a wheelchair, as Dante gave crisp instructions to people who seemed to jump at his every word, one truth crystallized in my pain-hazed mind. I'd just walked out of one prison and possibly into another. But this one came with Italian leather shoes, expensive cologne, and dark eyes that promised both protection and possession. And God help me, I wasn't sure which terrified me more. The delivery room was a blur of white coats and urgent voices, of pain that felt like it would split me in half, and exhaustion so complete I couldn't remember what it felt like to not hurt. But through it all, through every contraction that made me scream into the sterile air, through every moment I thought I couldn't survive another second, there was a hand holding mine, Dante's hand. He'd stayed. When the nurses had tried to escort him to the waiting room, explaining that only family was allowed in delivery, he'd simply looked at them with those dark, unreadable eyes and said, "I am family." Something in his tone, or perhaps the way the hospital administrator had suddenly appeared and whispered frantically to the nursing staff, made the rules disappear. No one questioned him again. "You're doing beautifully," he murmured, during a brief reprieve between contractions. His thumb continued those gentle circles on my skin, an anchor in the storm. "Just a little longer. I can't." Tears streamed down my face, mixing with sweat. "I can't do this. It's too much. I'm not strong enough." "Yes, you are." His free hand brushed damp hair from my forehead, the gesture so intimate it should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like relief. "You've been strong for 8 months, Elena. Strong enough to survive alone, to work when you should have been resting, to carry this baby without support. This is just one more thing you'll survive." Another contraction seized me, and I gripped his hand hard enough that I must have hurt him. He didn't make a sound, didn't pull away. When it passed, I looked at him through tears and pain-blurred vision. "Why are you still here?" My voice was hoarse from screaming. "You don't have to. You barely know me." Something shifted in his expression. A crack in that controlled facade. My sister died in childbirth. The words were quiet, almost lost in the beeping of monitors and the bustle of medical staff. 10 years ago, she was alone because the father had left her, because my family had disowned her for getting pregnant outside marriage, because I was too young and stupid to protect her the way I should have. The raw pain in his voice cut through my own agony. Dante, no one should go through this alone. His jaw tightened. No one. And since I can't save her, I can at least make sure history doesn't repeat itself with you. Before I could process his confession, before I could untangle the complex web of guilt and protection and something darker he'd just revealed, the doctor appeared between my legs, her voice bright with professional enthusiasm. All right, Elena, it's time to push. The next 30 minutes existed outside of time. There was only pain and pressure and the overwhelming animal instinct to push, to expel, to survive. Dante's voice in my ear, steady and low, counting with me, his hand in mine, absorbing my pain through touch alone. And then, suddenly, impossibly, a cry split the air. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, lifting a tiny, perfect creature covered in vernix and blood. A beautiful, healthy girl. They placed her on my chest, this impossible human I'd carried for 8 months, and the world tilted on its axis. She was so small, so fragile, with a shock of dark hair and eyes squeezed shut against the harsh lights. Her tiny fist waved in the air, searching, and I caught it with trembling fingers. "Hi, baby," I whispered, tears flowing freely now for an entirely different reason. "Hi, sweet girl. I'm your mama." She made a small sound, somewhere between a cry and a sigh, and nestled against my skin. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not Marcus, not his rejection, not the uncertainty of my future. There was only this perfect, warm weight against my chest, this new life that was somehow both me and completely herself. "She's beautiful." Dante's voice was rough, and when I glanced at him, I saw something raw in his expression. Wonder, maybe, or grief, or some combination of both. "What will you name her?" "Sophia." The name came without thought, but it felt right. "It means wisdom. I want her to be wiser than I was." "Sophia Santos." He tested the name, his accent making it sound musical. "It suits her." The nurses took her then, to clean and measure and perform all the mysterious rituals of newborn care. I felt her absence like a physical wound, but exhaustion was already pulling me under. The last thing I remembered before sleep claimed me was Dante's hand still holding mine, and his voice, barely above a whisper. "I'll keep you both safe. I swear it." I woke to sunlight streaming through hospital blinds and the antiseptic smell of clean sheets. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was or why every muscle in my body screamed in protest. Then memory flooded back, the convenience store, the broken water, Dante Moretti with his dark eyes and dangerous promises, Sophia. I sat up too quickly, ignoring the pain, panic rising in my throat. Where was she? Where was my baby? "She's in the nursery." Dante's voice came from the corner of the room, where he sat in an uncomfortable-looking chair, still wearing yesterday's clothes, though somehow he still looked impeccable. "They brought her 30 minutes ago for feeding, but you were sleeping so deeply they decided to let you rest. The nurse said she'd bring her back in 10 minutes. He'd stayed. All night, apparently, in that terrible chair, watching over me while I slept. "You didn't have to," I began, but he cut me off with a gesture. "We need to talk, Elena." He stood, moving to the window, his back to me. About what happens now. Dread pooled in my stomach. This was it then. The moment he'd explained the price for his help. The debt I now owed. Men like Dante Moretti, men who commanded rooms and made hospitals bend rules and knew everyone's secrets. They didn't do things out of kindness. There was always a cost. "I've made arrangements," he continued, still facing the window. "An apartment in Riverside Towers, 3 bedrooms, furnished with 24-hour security, a nanny if you want one, though no pressure. A private pediatrician for Sophia. All expenses covered, including a college fund for her that starts at $500,000. The numbers didn't make sense, The words didn't make sense. Why? The question came out strangled. What do you want from me? He turned then, and the morning light cast his features in sharp relief. I want you to let me destroy Marcus Chen. There it was. The truth. Stark and brutal. How? My voice was barely audible. A DNA test first, establishing paternity legally. He moved closer, his expression unreadable. Then a lawsuit, not for child support, but for emotional damages, breach of promise, whatever my lawyers can make stick. But more than that, I want him exposed. I want everyone in his pristine social circle to know what kind of man he is. I want his engagement to fall apart. I want his political career to crumble. I want him to lose everything, the way you lost everything when he walked away. I struggled to find words. That's excessive. That's revenge. Yes. He didn't deny it. Didn't soften it. It is. And if I say no, something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Then you say no. The apartment is yours regardless. The college fund stays. Sophia wants for nothing, but I walk away. And Marcus Chen continues his perfect life, never facing consequences for what he did to you. You mean for what he did to you? The pieces were starting to fit together. Whatever he stole from you, that's what this is really about, isn't it? I'm just convenient. Initially, yes, his honesty was almost brutal. When I discovered Marcus had abandoned a pregnant woman, I saw an opportunity, a way to hurt him that was completely legal, completely justified, and would let me destroy him using his own cruelty as the weapon. Initially, I caught the word, held it up between us. He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze locked on mine. Then I saw you in that store, 8 months pregnant, stocking shelves alone at 2 a.m, exhausted, terrified, still fighting. And I realized you weren't just convenient, Elena. You were remarkable. Don't. I shook my head, fighting against the dangerous warmth his words created in my chest. Don't romanticize this. You want revenge, and I'm the tool you'll use to get it. At least be honest about that. I am being honest. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell cedar and bergamot again. I want revenge. I want to watch Marcus Chen's world burn. But I also want to make sure you and Sophia have everything you deserve. Everything he should have given you. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. And what do you get out of it, besides revenge? His smile was sharp, predatory. The satisfaction of knowing I've removed a piece of garbage from my city. Marcus didn't just steal from me. He stole from 3 other families in my organization, thinking his connections would protect him. He was wrong. Organization. The word hung in the air like smoke. I couldn't say it, couldn't make the reality concrete. Yes. Simple. Unapologetic. Does that change your answer? It should have. It should have made me run, should have made me grab Sophia and disappear. But the truth was, I had nowhere to run to, no family to turn to. They'd disowned me when I'd gotten pregnant. No friends left. Marcus had systematically isolated me from everyone I knew. No money, no prospects, no future except more graveyard shifts and cheap apartments and constant fear. And Dante was offering me a way out, a poisoned chalice maybe, but still a way out. If I agree, I said slowly. What exactly would I have to do? Sign paperwork. Give interviews if needed. Let my lawyers handle everything. He pulled out his phone, swiped through something. You'd never have to see Marcus in person if you didn't want to. We'd handle all direct contact. And after? When Marcus is destroyed? What happens to me then? You live your life. He pocketed the phone. Raise Sophia. Go back to school if you want. I noticed you were studying art history before you dropped out. The apartment is yours for as long as you need it. You'd be under my protection. Protection. I tasted the word. Or surveillance? Both. Again, that brutal honesty. The world I live in is dangerous, Elena. Anyone associated with me becomes a target. That means guards, secure locations, careful monitoring of who you interact with. It means your freedom comes with conditions, so I'd be trading one prison for another. A prison with a view, excellent amenities, and the knowledge that your daughter will never go hungry. His voice hardened. But yes, If you want to think of it that way, then yes. The door opened, and a nurse wheeled in a clear bassinet. Inside, swaddled in pink and white, was Sophia. She was awake now, her dark eyes, so like mine, staring up with that unfocused newborn gaze that somehow still felt like she was seeing everything. "Someone's hungry," the nurse said cheerfully, lifting her and placing her in my arms. "I'll give you some privacy." Sophia rooted against my chest, her tiny mouth seeking, and I adjusted my hospital gown to help her latch. The sensation was strange, uncomfortable, but also profoundly right. This was what I was made for, what my body had spent 8 months preparing for. This moment. Dante watched us in silence, something unreadable crossing his features. 3 days, I said finally, not looking at him, focusing on Sophia's perfect face. Give me 3 days to think about it, to process everything, to make sure I'm not just making another desperate decision that I'll regret. 3 days. He nodded. But Elena, Marcus already knows about the birth. Hospital records aren't as private as they should be, and he has people watching for this. He'll send lawyers, or worse. You're not safe in your old apartment, and you can't stay here forever. Fear spiked through me, cold and sharp. What do you mean, or worse? He won't want this baby to exist as evidence of his indiscretion. Especially not now, when he's about to announce his engagement formally. Dante's voice was flat, matter of fact. Men like Marcus make problems disappear, Elena. It's what they do. I pulled Sophia closer, protective instinct overwhelming everything else. He wouldn't. He couldn't. He could. He would, and he will if given the opportunity. Dante crouched beside the hospital bed, bringing his eyes level with mine. I'm offering you protection and revenge. But more than that, I'm offering you survival, for both of you. Sophia finished feeding and made a small, contented sound. I lifted her to my shoulder, patting her back gently, feeling the fragile weight of her, the complete vulnerability. She was so small, so defenseless, and I was all she had. The apartment, I heard myself say. Can I see it, before I decide? Of course. He stood, relief flashing briefly across his face. I'll arrange transport for when you're discharged. Tomorrow, most likely. And the guards? Already in place. 2 in the hallway, 1 in the lobby, 1 monitoring security cameras. No one enters this room without my authorization. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, for the first time in 8 months, I felt something close to safe. Okay, I whispered, more to Sophia than to him. Okay. Dante moved toward the door, then paused. Elena, for what it's worth, I meant what I said. You're remarkable. What you've survived, what you're still fighting for. That's not convenient. That's extraordinary. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my daughter and a choice that felt less like freedom and more like falling. But maybe, I thought, watching Sophia's eyes drift closed in peaceful sleep, maybe falling wasn't always bad. Maybe sometimes someone caught you. The apartment was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd pictured something cold and modern, all glass and chrome and impersonal luxury. Instead, Riverside Towers Unit 47B was warm, cream-colored walls, hardwood floors that gleamed in the afternoon light, furniture that looked comfortable rather than merely expensive. The living room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, where sunlight danced on water like scattered diamonds. The nursery is this way. Dante's voice pulled me from my stunned examination of a kitchen that was larger than my entire previous apartment. He carried Sophia's car seat with surprising gentleness, navigating the space like he'd been here before. He probably had, overseeing every detail, making sure everything was perfect. The nursery stole my breath, soft sage-green walls, a white crib with delicate floral bedding, a rocking chair positioned near the window, with a small bookshelf already filled with children's books, a changing table stocked with diapers, wipes, creams, everything I'd been worrying about buying, everything I'd lost sleep over figuring out how to afford. There's a monitor system, Dante said, setting the car seat down carefully. Sophia slept on, oblivious to her new surroundings. Cameras in here and the hallway. Feed goes to your phone and to the security office downstairs. If she so much as hiccups, someone will know. It's too much. The words felt inadequate. This is all. It's too much. It's what you deserve. He moved to the window, adjusting the curtains. What Sophia deserves. A safe place to grow up, where you don't have to choose between rent and food, between her needs and your own. I wanted to argue, to insist I could have managed somehow, but we both knew it would be a lie. I'd been drowning, and he'd thrown me a lifeline. The fact that the lifeline came with strings attached didn't make it any less necessary. The master bedroom has an ensuite, he continued. All business now. Linens are in the closet. Kitchen is fully stocked. I had my housekeeper handle it. If you need anything else, there's a phone by the door. Press 1 for security, 2 for my direct line. Your direct line? I turned to face him. Why would I need that? Because in 3 days, you're going to give me your answer. His dark eyes held mine, and depending on what you decide, we'll either be working together very closely, or I'll be leaving you alone to live your life. Either way, you should be able to reach me. And if I say yes, if I agree to help you destroy Marcus, the words tasted strange on my tongue. Destruction, revenge, such violent concepts for someone who'd spent her whole life trying to be good, to follow rules, to not make waves. Then tomorrow, we start the legal process. DNA test for Sophia, paternity filing, lawsuit preparation. He ticked off items like a general planning a campaign. My lawyers are the best in the city. They'll make sure everything is airtight, make sure Marcus can't wriggle free. He has money, connections. His fiancé's father is a senator, and I have more of all three. The statement wasn't a boast, just fact. Elena, you need to understand something. In my world, I'm not just powerful. I'm untouchable. The people who should be hunting me, they're on my payroll. The politicians who should be my enemies, they owe me favors. When I move against Marcus Chen, it won't be a fight. It'll be an execution. The metaphor made me flinch. You're not going to actually kill him. No. Dante's smile was cold. Death would be mercy. I want him to live with what he's lost, with the knowledge that his own cruelty destroyed him. I want him to wake up every day and remember that he threw away a daughter, and that decision cost him everything. Sophia stirred in her car seat, making small sounds of distress. I moved automatically, unbuckling her and lifting her against my chest. She settled immediately, her tiny hand fisting in my shirt, and I felt that now familiar surge of fierce, overwhelming love. What if it affects her? I asked quietly. What if all this, the lawsuit, the publicity, the scandal, what if it hurts Sophia somehow? By the time she's old enough to understand any of it, it'll be ancient history. He moved closer, his gaze softening as he looked at her. And she'll grow up knowing her mother fought for her, stood up against the man who tried to pretend she didn't exist. That's not a burden, Elena. That's a gift. Or trauma. I swayed gently, rocking Sophia. Did you ever think that maybe revenge isn't worth the cost? That maybe some battles aren't worth fighting? His expression hardened. I've thought about little else for 3 years. Ever since Marcus stole $50 million from my organization, used it to fund his hedge fund, then hid behind his political connections when I came to collect. He thought himself untouchable because of who his fiancé's father is. He thought wrong. $50 million. The number was so large it became meaningless, abstract. I couldn't imagine that much money, couldn't fathom the kind of theft it represented. If he stole from you, why not just handle it, the way people in your world handle things? I couldn't believe I was asking this, couldn't believe I was standing in a beautiful apartment holding my newborn daughter and discussing murder so casually. Because I tried. His voice went flat, dangerous. I sent people to talk to him. He had them arrested on false charges, assault, attempted robbery, you name it. I tried financial pressure. He's too insulated. I tried blackmail. He's too clean. Or at least his lawyers are too good at making dirt disappear. Every traditional avenue was blocked. So you waited, until you found me. Until I found his mistake, he corrected. You're not a weapon, Elena. You're a consequence. The natural result of his actions coming home to roost. A knock at the door interrupted us. Dante's posture changed instantly. Not afraid, but alert, predatory. His hand moved to his hip, where I now noticed the subtle bulge of a concealed weapon. "It's just Rosa," he said after checking his phone. "The nanny I mentioned. You don't have to use her services, but I thought you might want to meet her." He opened the door to reveal a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore simple clothes and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd spent decades caring for children. "Ms. Santos," she said warmly, her accent placing her origins somewhere in South America. "I'm Rosa Delgado. Dante said you might need some help adjusting to motherhood." Yes, maybe. I felt suddenly overwhelmed, exhausted by decisions and implications, and the sheer weight of everything that had happened in the past 48 hours. "I don't know. I haven't thought about it. No pressure," Rosa assured me, moving into the apartment with practiced ease. "I raised 5 children of my own, helped with 23 others over the years. I know how hard those first few weeks are, especially alone. But I also know every mother is different. Every baby is different. We figure it out together, yes?" There was something grounding about her presence, something real in a situation that felt increasingly surreal. "Yes," I found myself saying. "Yes, that would be, thank you." "Why don't I make some tea?" Rosa suggested, already heading toward the kitchen. "And you sit down, rest. You just had a baby. You should be sleeping, not standing around talking business with men who don't understand what your body has been through." The gentle scolding was clearly directed at Dante, who had the grace to look slightly chagrined. "I'll leave you to settle in," he said. "Remember, 3 days. Then I need your answer." After he left, after Rosa had made tea and shown me where everything was in the kitchen, after Sophia had been fed and changed and placed in her beautiful new crib, I finally allowed myself to sit in the rocking chair and simply exist in the quiet. The apartment was silent except for Sophia's soft breathing and the distant sound of traffic from far below. Safe, warm, everything I dreamed of during those long nights stocking shelves and counting down the minutes until I could clock out and collapse in my tiny, cold studio. But safety had a price. It always did. The next 2 days passed in a blur of feeding schedules and diaper changes and exhaustion so complete I sometimes forgot my own name. Rosa came each morning, helping with Sophia, teaching me things the hospital nurses had rushed through: how to burp her properly, how to tell different cries apart, how to survive on 3 hours of sleep and pure determination. I didn't see Dante, but I felt his presence everywhere, in the fresh groceries that appeared in the refrigerator overnight, in the baby clothes that showed up in perfect sizes, in the security guard who stood outside my door, changing shifts every 8 hours with military precision. On the 3rd day, he called. "Have you decided?" No preamble, no small talk. Just the question that had been haunting me since I'd left the hospital. I looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling with perfect rhythm. I thought about Marcus, laughing in my face when I'd told him I was pregnant, telling me to deal with it, like she was a problem to be solved rather than a life to be cherished. I thought about the future, mine, hers, the long years stretching ahead filled with struggle and uncertainty. "Yes," I said quietly. "I'll do it. I'll help you destroy him." Silence on the other end, long enough that I wondered if he'd heard me. Then, "You're sure?" "No." Honesty felt important, necessary. "I'm not sure about anything except that Sophia deserves better than what Marcus offered, and if making him pay for what he did means she gets that better life, then yes, I'm in. I'll send the lawyers tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock if that works for you." His voice was different now, satisfied, perhaps, or relieved. "Elena, thank you." "Don't thank me yet." I watched Sophia's face, so innocent, so unaware of the storm we were about to unleash. "You might regret involving me in this." Impossible. The word was certain. Absolute. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start the war." He hung up before I could respond, leaving me alone with my daughter and my decision. That night, I dreamed of Marcus. Not the Marcus who'd charmed me in graduate school, who'd whispered promises and made me believe in fairy tales, but the Marcus who'd sneered at my pregnancy test, who'd called me stupid for not taking care of it, who'd walked away without looking back. In the dream, he was standing in the convenience store where Dante had found me, but the store was flooding, water rising rapidly, and I was trying to reach Sophia, who cried from somewhere I couldn't see. Marcus just watched, arms crossed, smiling. "You should have dealt with it," he said. "This is your fault." The water rose higher, cold and dark, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. I woke gasping, drenched in sweat, Sophia's actual cries cutting through the nightmare. She was hungry, or uncomfortable, or just needing the reassurance that she wasn't alone. I lifted her from the crib, settled into the rocking chair, and let her nurse while my heart rate slowly returned to normal. Through the window, the city sparkled with a million lights. Somewhere out there, Marcus Chen slept peacefully in his expensive bed, beside his senator's daughter, dreaming of his perfect future. Somewhere else, Dante Moretti planned his revenge with the patience of a predator, and here I was, caught between them. No longer the invisible girl working graveyard shifts, no longer the abandoned pregnant woman with no options. I was something new now, something dangerous. I was a mother, with nothing left to lose, and that made me the most powerful piece on Dante's chessboard. Sophia finished feeding and looked up at me with those dark, solemn eyes. "It's going to be okay," I whispered to her. Or maybe to myself. "We're going to be okay." Outside, dawn was beginning to break over the river, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. A new day. A new war. And I was ready to fight. The lawyers arrived at exactly 9 o'clock. 3 of them in matching navy suits carrying leather briefcases that probably cost more than my previous year's salary. They were polite, efficient, and terrifyingly competent. Within an hour, they'd explained paternity law, custody rights, and civil litigation in terms even my exhausted brain could understand. The DNA test was simple: a cheek swab for Sophia, documentation for Marcus that they'd handle obtaining through proper channels, which I suspected meant channels that weren't entirely proper at all. The lawsuit would take longer, they explained, but the publicity could start immediately if I was willing. "We'll need you to give a statement," the lead attorney said, a woman named Catherine Chen. No relation to Marcus, she'd assured me with a tight smile. About the relationship, the pregnancy, his abandonment. The more detailed, the more sympathetic, the better. Sympathetic. I tasted the word, hated it. "You mean you want me to play the victim? You are the victim," Catherine corrected gently. "We're just making sure everyone else sees that clearly." After they left, after Sophia had been fed and put down for her morning nap, I stood at the window staring out at the river and feeling the weight of what I'd agreed to settle over me like concrete. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Rooftop, 1 hour. D. The building's rooftop garden was something from a magazine. Manicured plants and elegant planters, comfortable seating areas, a pergola draped with flowering vines. And standing at the edge, looking out over the city like he owned it, was Dante. He'd changed since I'd last seen him. Gone was the businessman appearance. Today, he wore dark jeans and a black Henley that emphasized the lean muscle of his frame. He looked younger, more dangerous, like the veneer of civilization had been stripped away to reveal something primal underneath. The lawyer said it went well. He didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge my approach beyond the words. They said a lot of things. I moved to stand beside him, keeping a careful distance between us. Mostly about how this is going to destroy Marcus's life. Good. Simple. Brutal. That's the point. Is it? I finally asked the question that had been eating at me. Or is there something else you're not telling me? Some other reason you hate him this much? For a long moment, he was silent. Then, "Do you know how my sister died?" The change of subject threw me. "You said childbirth. She bled out on the floor of a cheap clinic." His voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow made it worse. Because the father, a man from a good family with political connections, convinced her that she couldn't go to a real hospital, that her pregnancy would ruin his career, so she went to this place, this butcher shop, and she died there while he was at a fundraiser with his senator father. Ice flooded my veins. Marcus's fiancé's father. Senator Richardson. Yes. Dante's hands gripped the railing, knuckles white. The same man who covered up what happened to Isabella, who paid off the clinic, who made sure his precious son-in-law-to-be faced no consequences. And now that son-in-law is Marcus Chen, who took my money and thinks himself untouchable because of that connection. So this isn't just about revenge. Understanding crashed over me. This is about making sure history doesn't repeat itself. About stopping Marcus before he does to someone else what was done to Isabella. Partially. He finally turned to face me, and the raw pain in his eyes stole my breath. But mostly, it's about making sure the men who think they can use and discard women without consequence learn that they're wrong, that eventually, their actions catch up with them. Even if it means using me and Sophia as weapons, especially then. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to step back. Because you and Sophia are the living proof of his cruelty. You're the consequence he tried to pretend didn't exist. And when I'm done, everyone will know exactly what kind of man he is. And what kind of man are you, Dante? The question escaped before I could stop it. You talk about consequences and justice, but you're a criminal. You hurt people. You've probably killed people. How is what you do any different than what Marcus did? His laugh was sharp, humorless. I never pretended to be a good man, Elena. I've never lied about what I am or what I do. But I have a code. I don't hurt innocents. I don't abandon my responsibilities. And I always, always keep my promises. Can Marcus say the same? No, I admitted quietly. He can't. Then stop trying to find equivalence where there isn't any. He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek with unexpected gentleness. You're not making a deal with the devil. You're making a deal with someone who understands what it means to be powerless, and who's offering you power in return. The touch sent electricity through me, inappropriate and dangerous, and impossible to ignore. I stepped back, putting distance between us, trying to remember that this man was using me, that his kindness came with strings attached. The statement the lawyers want, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. When do they need it? Whenever you're ready. He lowered his hand, something like disappointment flickering across his features. But Elena, the sooner we move, the less time Marcus has to prepare his defense. Speed is a weapon in cases like this. Then I'll do it today. Decision crystallized in my chest. I'll tell them everything. How we met. How he pursued me. How he promised me a future and then threw me away the moment that future became inconvenient. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who Marcus Chen is. Good. Approval warmed his voice. That's good. My publicist will coordinate with Catherine. We'll release the statement through proper channels, make sure it reaches the right people. And then what? We just wait for him to fall apart? Then we watch him scramble. Dante's smile was predatory. He'll try to discredit you first. Claim the baby isn't his, that you're a gold digger, that this is all a scheme. But the DNA test will prove paternity, and my lawyers will bury him in documentation. Text messages, witnesses who saw you together, medical records showing prenatal care you couldn't afford. Every piece of evidence will show the truth, that he's a coward who abandoned his own child. The venom in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, I felt something else. Something dark and satisfied and deeply, shamefully vindictive. I want to see him, I heard myself say, when it all falls apart, when his engagement ends and his career crumbles. I want to see his face. Dante's expression shifted, something dangerous and approving lighting his eyes. That can be arranged, though I warn you, seeing your enemy destroyed up close can be intoxicating. Maybe I want to be intoxicated. The words came out fiercer than I intended. Maybe I'm tired of being the good girl who accepts her fate and moves on. Maybe I want him to hurt the way he made me hurt. There she is. His voice was barely above a whisper. The fire I saw in that convenience store, the strength that kept you fighting when you should have broken. Don't hide that, Elena. Not from me. We stood there, inches apart. The city sprawling below us and the morning sun beating down overhead. I could smell his cologne, could see the faint scar along his jawline, could feel the dangerous pull of his presence like gravity. I should go. I broke the moment, stepping back. Sophia will wake soon, and I need to write that statement while I'm still angry enough to do it justice. Elena. He caught my wrist as I turned to leave. After this is over, after Marcus has paid for what he did, you'll be free. To leave, to stay, to live however you want. I'm not keeping you prisoner, aren't you? I looked down at his hand on my wrist, at the expensive watch he wore, at the controlled power in his grip. This apartment, the guards, the lawyers. It's all a cage, Dante. A beautiful one, but still a cage. Then consider it temporary, he released me. Until you're strong enough to fly on your own. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that this was temporary, that I could use his resources and his revenge and then walk away clean. But I'd learned the hard way that nothing in life came without strings, and men like Dante Moretti didn't let go of things they considered theirs, and somewhere, in the past 3 days, I'd become his. The statement took 4 hours to write. Catherine had provided a framework, but I'd insisted on using my own words. The lawyers could polish it later, could make it legally sound and media-friendly. But the core of it, the pain and betrayal and desperate loneliness, that had to be mine. My name is Elena Santos. 2 years ago, I met Marcus Chen at a university mixer. He pursued me relentlessly, charmed me with promises of a future together, made me believe I was special. When I became pregnant, he laughed in my face. He called me stupid. He told me to deal with it and walked away. I have not received a single dollar from him, a single call, a single acknowledgement that his daughter exists. This is who Marcus Chen is, a man who creates life and then pretends it never happened. I'd written more, pages more, but those were the sentences that mattered. The ones that would be quoted in articles and shared on social media and repeated in whispers at the country clubs where Marcus and his senator's daughter held court. Rosa found me crying at the kitchen table, the statement printed and staring up at me like an accusation. Oh, sweetheart. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like lavender and comfort. This is the hard part, yes? The moment when you make it all real. What if I'm wrong? The words tumbled out between sobs. What if I'm doing this for the wrong reasons? What if it hurts Sophia somehow? Wrong reasons? Rosa pulled back, her hands firm on my shoulders. You're doing this because a man needs to take responsibility for his child. That's not wrong. That's right. That's what should have happened from the beginning. But Dante Moretti is using you for his own purposes, yes. She said it matter-of-factly, without judgment. But sometimes, the enemy of our enemy becomes our friend. And sometimes revenge and justice look the same from different angles. You know who he is, what he is. I've worked for the Moretti family for 20 years. Rosa moved to the stove, starting to prepare something that smelled like home. I've seen Dante grow from an angry boy to a dangerous man, but I've also seen him protect his people, provide for families who had nothing, show mercy when others would have shown cruelty. He's not a good man, Elena, but he's not a monster either. Then what is he? Complicated. She smiled sadly. Like all of us. That night, I sent the statement to Catherine. Within an hour, Dante called. It's perfect, he said without preamble. Raw, honest, devastating. Marcus won't be able to spin this. When will you release it? My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Tomorrow morning. Prime time for media consumption. He paused. Are you ready for what comes next? The attention, the questions, the inevitable backlash from Marcus's camp? No. Honesty felt important, but I'm doing it anyway. That's all courage is, doing the thing that terrifies you because it needs to be done. Something warm entered his voice. You're going to survive this, Elena. You and Sophia both. I promise you that. Your promises are starting to pile up, I said softly. What happens if you can't keep them all? Then I die trying. Absolute. Simple. Sleep well. Tomorrow we go to war. He hung up, and I was left alone in the darkened apartment. Sophia sleeping peacefully in her nursery, the city lights twinkling outside like stars. Tomorrow the statement would go public. Tomorrow Marcus Chen's perfect life would start to crumble. Tomorrow I would stop being invisible. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I felt terrified. But Rosa was right. Sometimes revenge and justice wore the same face, and if making Marcus pay meant Sophia would grow up knowing her mother had fought for her, had refused to let her father's abandonment define them, then it was worth the fear. I walked to the nursery, stood over Sophia's crib watching her sleep. She was so perfect, so innocent, completely unaware of the storm about to break over our lives. "I'm doing this for you," I whispered. "So you'll never have to wonder if you were wanted. So you'll know that when it mattered, I fought. Even if it scares me, even if it changes everything, I fought for you." She stirred slightly, her tiny hand curling and uncurling, and I felt that fierce maternal love surge through me again. Whatever came next, media scrutiny, Marcus's retaliation, the dangerous waters of Dante's world, I would survive it. Because I wasn't alone anymore. I had Sophia. I had Rosa. And whether I trusted him or not, I had Dante Moretti standing between me and the wolves. That would have to be enough. The statement went live at 7 a.m., and by 8, my phone had exploded with notifications. News outlets, social media, messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all of them wanting a piece of the story, wanting to know more about the woman who dared to accuse Marcus Chen of abandonment. I'd turned my phone off by 8:30, unable to handle the constant buzzing, the weight of thousands of strangers dissecting my life. But Dante called the landline at 9, his voice tight with something between satisfaction and concern. "It's everywhere," he said. "Every major outlet, trending on 3 different platforms. Marcus's office has already released a statement denying everything, calling you a liar and threatening legal action." Good. The word surprised me with its venom. Let him threaten. The DNA test will prove I'm telling the truth. His lawyers are already trying to block it. Claiming harassment, invasion of privacy, every legal trick in the book, a pause. But my lawyers are better. We'll have that test within the week, and then he'll have no ground to stand on. What about his fiancée? I hadn't let myself think about her much. Senator Richardson's daughter, whose name I'd deliberately never learned, who was probably as much a victim of Marcus's deception as I was. Catherine Richardson broke off the engagement an hour ago. Dante's voice held dark satisfaction. Released a statement through her father's office expressing shock and disappointment. Distance herself completely from Marcus. The senator is furious. He'd staked significant political capital on that marriage. Part of me felt guilty. Catherine hadn't done anything wrong except fall for the same lies I had. But another part, the part that had spent 8 months alone and terrified, felt only grim vindication. So what happens now? Now we wait for him to make a mistake. Dante's tone shifted, becoming harder. Desperate men do stupid things, Elena. And Marcus is about to become very desperate. He was right. 2 days later, Marcus showed up at my building. I was in the nursery with Sophia when the security alert came through on my phone. Unauthorized visitor attempting to access the 47th floor. Identification confirmed as Marcus Chen. My blood turned to ice. Before I could even process what was happening, my apartment door burst open. Not Marcus. Dante, flanked by 2 guards, his face a mask of controlled fury. "He's in the lobby," he said without preamble. "My security is holding him, but he's demanding to see you, threatening legal action, causing a scene. I don't want to see him." My arms tightened around Sophia instinctively. "Tell him to leave." "I will." "But Elena..." Dante moved closer, his eyes locked on mine. "This might be an opportunity. If he threatens you, if he says anything incriminating in front of witnesses, it strengthens our case exponentially. You want me to confront him." Horror and something else, anticipation maybe, warred in my chest. "You want me to go down there. I want you to have the choice." His voice softened. "You can stay here, safe, and I'll have him removed. Or you can face him, with me and my people there to protect you, and show him that he doesn't scare you anymore." Sophia made a small sound, and I looked down at her perfect face. She was the reason for all of this. The lawsuit, the statement, the revenge. She deserved to have a mother who was strong, who didn't hide from the man who'd tried to pretend she didn't exist. "I'll go," I heard myself say. "But I'm bringing Sophia." Dante's expression shifted. Surprise, approval, something darker. "Are you sure?" "He needs to see her." My voice was steady now, certain. "He needs to see what he threw away." The ride down to the lobby felt eternal. Dante stood close enough that I could feel his heat, his presence a wall between me and the world. The guards flanked us, professional and alert, and in my arms, Sophia slept peacefully, unaware that she was about to meet her father for the first time. The lobby was empty, except for Marcus, held between two of Dante's security team, and the building's manager hovering nervously near the desk. Marcus looked different than I remembered, thinner, with shadows under his eyes and a wildness to his expression that spoke of sleepless nights and crumbling control. When he saw me, saw Sophia, his face went white. "Elena." My name came out strangled. "We need to talk. Alone." "No." Dante's voice cut through the space like a blade. "You don't get to make demands here. This is my building, my security, and Elena is under my protection. You speak to her with witnesses present, or you don't speak to her at all." Marcus's eyes darted between us, calculation and panic warring in his expression. "So this is it? You're shacking up with some mobster, using our child as leverage to extort money from me? Our child?" The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. "You laughed in my face when I told you I was pregnant. You called me stupid. You told me to deal with it alone. Now suddenly she's our child?" "I was scared," Marcus said, and for a moment, he almost sounded sincere. "I panicked, but I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. I thought you'd get rid of her," I finished, ice in my voice. "That's what you wanted, wasn't it? For me to make your problem disappear so you could marry your senator's daughter and live your perfect life. It's not like that." But his eyes flickered away, unable to hold my gaze. "I can help now. I can provide support, set up a fund. You can't buy your way out of this." Dante's voice was quiet, deadly. "The statement is public. The DNA test is happening. Every news outlet in the city is running the story of how you abandoned a pregnant woman. Your reputation is destroyed, Marcus, and no amount of money will fix that. This is your doing." Marcus's face twisted with rage, and he lunged toward Dante. The guards restrained him immediately, but not before I saw the desperation in his eyes. "You set this up. You used her to get to me because of that business with the investment fund." "The 50 million you stole, you mean?" Dante's smile was sharp. "Yes, I remember. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? That you could rob from my organization and hide behind political connections forever? I have proof of what you are," Marcus spat. "Documentation of your criminal activities. I've already given copies to federal investigators. You're finished, Moretti." The lobby went very still. Even Sophia seemed to sense the tension, stirring in my arms with a small cry of distress. Dante laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. "Federal investigators on whose payroll, Marcus? Because I can think of at least 3 who owe me significant favors. And Senator Richardson, your former future father-in-law, he's particularly motivated to distance himself from you right now. No one is coming to save you. You can't do this." Marcus's voice cracked. "I'll fight you. I'll sue for custody. I'll claim parental rights. With what money?" Dante moved closer, predatory. "Your hedge fund is hemorrhaging clients as we speak. Your fiancé left you. Your political connections are severing ties to avoid contamination. You have nothing left, Marcus. Nothing except the consequences of your own cruelty." I watched Marcus's face as reality crashed over him, the understanding that he'd lost, that his perfect life had crumbled, that his own actions had destroyed everything he'd built. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a hollow emptiness where hatred should have been. "Elena." Marcus turned to me, desperate now. "Please. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. I can be a father to her. No." The word came out firm, final. "You had 8 months to be a father. You chose to walk away. That choice has consequences, Marcus. For you, not for her. So you're just going to let him keep you?" Marcus gestured wildly at Dante. "You think he's protecting you? He's using you, Elena. Just like he uses everyone. Once he's done destroying me, he'll throw you away too. Maybe." I looked at Dante, at his controlled expression and dangerous eyes. Or maybe I'm using him just as much as he's using me. Either way, it's my choice. And I choose Sophia. I choose her future, her security, her knowing that her mother fought for her. That's more than you ever gave us. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but Dante cut him off with a gesture. You have 10 seconds to leave this building before I have you arrested for trespassing and harassment. And Marcus, if you ever come near Elena or Sophia again without legal authorization, consequences will be permanent. The threat hung in the air, unspoken, but understood. Marcus looked between us one final time, something like grief crossing his features, before the guards escorted him out. The lobby fell silent except for Sophia's soft breathing and the distant sound of traffic from outside. Are you all right? Dante's voice was gentle now, the predator gone and something almost human remaining. I don't know. Honesty felt important. I thought I'd feel triumphant, seeing him broken like that, but I just feel tired. That's because revenge is exhausting. He moved closer, his hand coming up to cup my cheek, but it's also necessary. He needed to face what he did, needed to see that his actions had consequences. Now it's done. Is it? I looked up at him, at this dangerous man who'd inserted himself into my life and changed everything. Or is this just the beginning of something else? His thumb traced my cheekbone, a gesture that had become familiar over the past weeks. That depends on what you want it to be. I don't know what I want. The confession escaped before I could stop it. I don't know if what I feel for you is gratitude or something more dared out as we go. And if I want to leave, when this is all over, if I want to take Sophia and start fresh somewhere else, pain flashed across his features, quickly masked, then I'll make sure you have the resources to do exactly that. I told you, Elena, you're not my prisoner. You never were. But you want me to stay. It wasn't a question. Yes. Simple. Honest. Raw. I want you to stay. Not because you owe me. Not because you're afraid to leave, but because you choose to. Because somewhere in this mess of revenge and protection and complicated circumstances, you've become important to me. You and Sophia both. Sophia chose that moment to wake fully, her face scrunching up in preparation for a cry. I bounced her gently, making soothing sounds, and felt Dante's hand settle on the small of my back. Supportive, possessive, protective. I need time, I said quietly. Time to process everything that's happened. Time to figure out who I am outside of being Marcus's ex or your whatever I am to you. Time to be just Sophia's mother. Take all the time you need. He pressed a kiss to my temple, brief and gentle. The apartment is yours for as long as you want it. Rosa will continue helping with Sophia. My protection remains in place. Nothing changes except that the war with Marcus is over. You won. We won, I corrected. This was your revenge as much as my justice. Then we both won. His smile was slight but genuine, and that's rare enough to celebrate. 3 months later, the DNA test had confirmed paternity beyond any doubt. Marcus's lawyers had tried everything to suppress it, to claim procedural errors, to dispute the results. But Dante's legal team was relentless, and eventually the truth became undeniable. Sophia was Marcus Chen's daughter, and he'd abandoned her. The lawsuit settlement was generous, not because Marcus wanted to pay, but because his lawyers knew they'd lose worse if it went to trial. Child support, medical expenses, a college fund that would ensure Sophia never wanted for anything. Marcus's reputation was in tatters, his career effectively over. Last I'd heard, he'd moved to the West Coast, trying to rebuild somewhere no one knew his name. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt strangely peaceful. The apartment had become home. Rosa came 3 days a week, helping with Sophia, and teaching me cooking techniques my own mother had never bothered to show me. I'd re-enrolled in school, taking online classes in art history while Sophia napped. The future I'd thought was lost was slowly reassembling itself into something new, something better. And Dante was a constant presence, though he'd kept his promise about giving me space. He called daily to check on Sophia. He sent flowers on my birthday. He appeared for Sunday dinners that Rosa insisted on cooking, sitting at my table and making Sophia laugh with silly faces that seemed completely at odds with his dangerous reputation. We hadn't discussed what we were to each other, hadn't labeled the strange connection that had formed through revenge and protection and long conversations while Sophia slept. but it was there, undeniable, growing stronger with each passing day. On a warm spring evening, I found him on the rooftop garden again, same position as that first conversation months ago. But this time, when I approached, he turned immediately, a smile softening his features. "I was hoping you'd come up here," he said. "Sophia's asleep. Rosa's watching her." I moved to stand beside him, looking out over the city that had witnessed all of our transformation. I wanted to talk. About? But I could see in his eyes that he already knew. About staying. The words came easier than I'd expected. Not because I'm grateful or afraid, or because I owe you anything, but because somewhere in this complicated mess, I started building a life here, with Sophia, with Rosa, with you, Elena. He turned to face me fully, vulnerability naked on his face. "Let me finish." I pressed my fingers to his lips, feeling him still beneath my touch. "You were right. Revenge and justice can look the same from different angles. What you did to Marcus was both, and I'm not sorry for any of it. He deserved consequences, and Sophia deserved better. But more than that, I deserve better. I deserve a life where I'm not invisible, where I'm not apologizing for existing, where I can be strong and soft and complicated all at once. You are all those things." His voice was rough. "You always were. I know that now." I lowered my hand. "Because you saw it first. Because you looked at an exhausted, pregnant woman stocking shelves at 2 a.m. and saw someone worth protecting, worth fighting for. And I don't know if what I feel for you is love or gratitude or just the trauma bond of surviving something impossible together. But I know I don't want to figure it out alone." Dante's hands came up to frame my face, his touch impossibly gentle for someone so dangerous. "I fell in love with you the moment you pushed my money back across that counter and told me to leave. You were 8 months pregnant, terrified, probably on the edge of collapse, and you still had pride, still had fire. I knew then that you were extraordinary." "That's not love," I said softly. "That's fascination. Maybe it started that way." His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "But it became love when I watched you give birth to Sophia with more courage than I've seen in men who face death. It became love when you agreed to help destroy Marcus not for yourself, but for her. It became love every time you've chosen to be strong instead of safe, to fight instead of flee. You're the most remarkable woman I've ever met, Elena Santos, and I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you." Tears pricked my eyes. "I'm still figuring out how to love you back, how to reconcile what you are with who you are, how to let myself be protected without being possessed." "Then figure it out here." He pressed his forehead to mine. "Figure it out with me. Let me love you while you learn to love me back. Let me be a father to Sophia, not because I'm trying to replace Marcus, but because I choose her the way he never did. Let me give you both the life you deserve. And if I can't, if the darkness of your world is too much, if I can't handle what you do, who you really are, then I'll let you go." The words cost him. I could see it in his eyes. "But I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and more than capable of loving a man like me. Because you've already survived the worst. Abandonment, loneliness, bringing life into the world alone. Everything else is just details." He was right. I had survived. Not just survived. I'd fought. I'd won. I'd built something new from the ashes of what Marcus had destroyed. And Dante had been there for all of it, protecting and supporting and never once asking for anything I wasn't ready to give. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay. Okay?" Hope lit his features. "I'll stay. I'll figure this out. I'll let you love me while I learn to love you back." I smiled through tears. "But Dante? I'm already halfway there. Maybe more." He kissed me then, gentle at first, then deeper, with all the passion and possession and promise he'd been holding back for months. I kissed him back, tasting future and possibility, and the strange, complicated love that had grown from revenge and protection, and choosing each other again and again. When we finally pulled apart, the city sparkled below us, full of light and life and endless possibility. "I have something for you." Dante reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box. "Before you panic, it's not a ring. Not yet, anyway. but it is a promise. Inside was a key. Simple, silver, elegant. To what? I asked. To wherever you want to go. His smile was soft. A house outside the city if you want privacy. A bigger apartment if you prefer staying here. Hell, a villa in Italy if you want to start completely fresh. This key represents choice, Elena. The freedom to build the life you want, wherever that takes you, as long as you'll let me be part of it. I closed my fingers around the key, feeling its weight, its possibility. I think I'll stay here, I said finally. This apartment has become home. Sophia's nursery is perfect, and the rooftop garden has excellent views for conversations about complicated things. Like love? Like love. I leaned into him, feeling safe and strong and seen. Like building a family from broken pieces. Like revenge and justice and second chances. Like all the complicated, messy, beautiful things that make life worth living. Below us, the city hummed with life. Above us, stars pierced the darkening sky. And between us, Sophia slept peacefully, dreaming infant dreams, completely unaware that her mother had just chosen love over fear, future over past, the complicated, dangerous man who'd saved them both over the safe emptiness of going it alone. Marcus had tried to make us disappear. Instead, we'd become visible, powerful, worthy of protection and love and all the beautiful complications that came with choosing to stay. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all.